So today's session, we will be discussing about the various forms which are important for salary returns, and also what is the process of tax computation, and what are the other important things which we need to understand before we file the salary returns. In the meantime, I had asked a question here: what does the department expect? Why does the department expect TDS to be done by the taxpayers? Is the question which I have. So, can I have answers from you people? So, anybody willing to answer can raise your hands. I will allow you to speak. Okay, let's start and continue forward. We'll discuss this going further. Okay, so what is the schedule of today's session? So we'll start it with a poll as usual. Then we will be, yesterday we have discussed this till gross total income. So we will be discussing about deductions under chapter 6C in brief. Then we will go on with tax computation, then TDS and advance tax, and understanding the important forms for salary returns is what is the agenda for today. And the last will be the question and answer session. Okay. So yesterday we have discussed as to what is gross total income. So gross totaling is nothing but the total of all the heads of income. So then what is total income? Total income is nothing but gross total income as reduced by the permissible deductions as mentioned under section 80C to 82, 80U. So the formula will be in simple: total or taxable income will be gross total income minus deductions under chapter 6A. So what are the deductions that are applicable, or why does the deductions are given? So basically the department gives you certain benefits on certain investments or expenditure which you are having, considering that these are the basic things which any person will incur, and these are basically which will enable them to save the tax, or they will consider this as something which is mandatory for any person to do, and you will get the benefit if you have spent from the taxable income which you have earned. Okay, so if you want to understand in detail, the income tax department, with a view to increase the savings and investments among taxpayers, they provide various deductions from the taxable income under chapter 6A. Okay, so there are various sections that start from 80C and up to 80U. There are different conditions for each section. Okay, many people will be confused that 1.5 lakhs is a slab and that is what I get. This is wrong. 80C is one of the section where you have deductions under various investments, which alone is up to 1.5 lakhs. Apart from 80C, there are various other sections up to 80U, wherein you get different benefit for different categories of persons and based on different conditions that has to be satisfied. So each section will take 1 hour's time to explain or understand. So I will just give a brief. You will have to understand in depth by going into depth for each section if you are interested or where you want to claim that. So this is something you have to put your efforts and time to understand what are the different sections. Okay. So what are the basic sections I can tell you which are generally which are being used, or you can use, or you always keep in mind, are basically 80C. 80C is generally used or considered as deductions where most of the people use. This 80C is where you get 1.5 lakhs of deduction, which includes your insurance premium, your PF, ESR, the DPF, and FDs under the tax scheme, or NSCs, or even your principal amount on the housing loan. So these are the basic things which are getting covered under 80C, which has a limit of up to 1.5 lakhs. Okay, apart from this, there are various other sections like 80D, which covers about medical insurance premium. You have 80 TTA. As I was telling you, it is mandatory to deduct or to disclose the interest on savings and then claim deduction under 80 TTA. This is what is the section where you can claim deduction under 80 TTA on the interest on savings account. So you cannot take a stand that it is below taxable limit, so I have not disclosed. You have to disclose and then claim benefit under 80 TTA to the extent eligible. So for normal individuals, assessees, the 80 TTA deduction on the interest is 80 TTA deduction will be 10,000 rupees, and for senior citizens it is up to 50,000 rupees. Okay. And then you have 80 GG for house rent paid for non-salaried people. Then you have 80E basically with regard to the interest on education loan, 80D medical insurance. So you have different slab. If you are a senior citizen, then the different slab if you are not a senior citizen, and different slab if you are not a senior citizen, but you are paying for premium including yourself and your parents who are senior citizens. So there are different slabs you have to understand under each section. So there is another section called 80DD where you have benefit if you have any disabled dependent on you. If you have any disabled dependent on you, you will be getting additional benefit under 80DD subject to certain conditions. 80DD and 80DDB are both similar sections which give benefit to medical for medical expenditure under various criteria. So 80U is special deduction which is given to physically disabled people. If the assessee themselves are physically disabled, you have a separate section where you get benefit and you can claim benefit under section 80U. To that extent, you will be given a benefit. And 80G donations. So as I told you, there are many people who are being giving donations to various institutions, various authorities or whatever. So there is a separate section which is called as 80G. Under this, you will be able to claim deductions under for donations. But 80G donation is available for deduction only if they provide you with the 80G certificate. You cannot claim deductions of any payment when you are paid voluntary as donations, but they are not recognized by the income tax department, or they do not have the 80G certification. If the donor, if the person who receives the donation has got the 80G certification done, he will have to provide a certificate providing his PAN number and 80G certificate. Only then the donors will be eligible for donation. Unless then, whatever donations you give will not be eligible for the benefit under the Income Tax Act. The department says there is no problem in you donating, but if you want to claim the donation, then you have to pay to the persons who are registered with the Income Tax Department. And there is one more condition which has been laid down. Any donation paid in cash about 2,000 rupees will not be eligible for benefit. So it is mandatory that the donations are paid in check. Okay. And one more important thing you should note is, even though the registrations are being done with the department and they give a 80G certificate to you, there are two categories of donations benefits you get. One is 100% donation benefit, and second is 50% benefit. So the donations made under the Prime Minister's schemes or the government, any of the government schemes, are eligible for 100% deduction of the amount paid as donation. If you are paid donation to other registered institutions which are not government schemes, you get a donation benefit, but it is restricted to 50% of the donation made by you. So this is also a very important thing which you should keep in mind. So even though their person is registered under the income tax exemption limit, under the income tax department, he has a 80G certificate. You have to ensure that whether you will be under 100% category or it will be under 50% category. That is very important that you should always remember. So there is other section 80DDB and other things which are not much relevant, which I don't see that much of relevance in your regular tax filings. So these are the major things which you always have to keep in mind. And one more thing is 80CCD is a pension plan which has come up recently in the past 2 years, wherein you get the additional benefit over and above your 1.5 lakh exemption. So these are the major things wherein the department says if you are investing in these categories, this will be considered and as a deduction from the taxable income. So if you have earned 5 lakhs, you have spent 2 lakhs under these schemes, then you will be able to pay, you will be liable to pay tax only on the balance of 3 lakhs under the respective tax slab you are falling in. Okay, hope you are clear on this. So if any doubts you have, you can put it in question and answers. We will discuss this later after the session. Okay. Now, as I told you, you have gross total income, then you consider the deductions which are applicable, and then after the deductions which are there, you get arrive at the total income. Now, what do you do with the total income? So any total income will have to pay tax, or what is that you have? So as I told you, there are many people who are the people who have attended my previous class. As I told you, there are two schemes from this assessment year. So department has given you two schemes, alternative one, alternative two. Any person has an option to choose whether I want to go with the old scheme or I want to give it a new scheme. So what is the difference between the two schemes? So the first scheme is the tax to pay tax at a lower rate as per the new tax regime. The department has given different, instead of three slab of 10%, 20%, and 30%. The department has given various slab of 5% from starting from 5% and addition of every 5% till 30% on different slabs. So you have given an option to go at a lower rate under the new tax condition on a basic condition that you don't claim any benefit or deduction under the Income Tax Act. Just arrive at your gross total income without considering any deductions or exemptions, and then see which slab you are falling in as per the new slab, pay tax as per that slab. And second thing is, second alternative is just go with the old slab. You take all the benefits and take benefits and deductions, and then join the and pay the tax under as per that. Okay, so these are two schemes. Now we will check out what are, how do we compute what is the tax under the old scheme. So generally, what is the old scheme? Basically, the old scheme is like this: up to 2.5 lakhs, the tax payable is zero. So up to 2.5 lakh rupees, if your total income or the taxable income is below 2.5 lakhs, you don't pay any tax. So you will have to declare my income, gross total income was 4 lakhs. I have a deduction of 1.5 lakhs. So my taxable income is 2.5 lakhs. So even though my income is more than 2.5 lakhs, because of deductions, my total income is come to 2.5 lakhs. My tax payable is zero. That is how we'll have to disclose, and you have to file your returns. So what is then, what if the my total income or taxable income is between 2.5 lakhs to 5 lakhs? So if you are under the taxable income comes under this second slab, you will have to pay 5% of the income which exceeds 2.5 lakhs. It is not from rupee 1, it will be on the income exceeding 2.5 lakhs. You pay 5% the tax on the income. So I'll not be discussing in depth on this because we have discussed on tax computation in the first class. I don't want to waste time on this. I'll be discussing on the new topics. So you can check out on, I'll be giving you assignments for which you will be working on the tax workings, tax calculations. So what if my taxable income falls into the second slab? So if my taxable income falls from 5 lakhs to 10 lakhs, my taxable income will be between my tax payable will be 20% of the income exceeding 5 lakhs. So, for example, if my income is 6 lakhs, I'll fall under the second slab of 5 lakhs to 10 lakhs. So, in that case, I will have to pay tax at 20%. But 20% on what amount? 20% of amount exceeding 5 lakhs, that is 1 lakh. So, what about the previous one? Since you have already crossed these two slabs, you will have to calculate the tax on the previous slab. That means you have crossed the first slab, which has 2.5 lakhs of income, which will be taxable at 5%. That comes to 12,500. That is 2,50,000 at the rate of 5% comes to 12,500. So if you fall under the second slab, you will have to pay minimum of 12,500 plus 20% of the income exceeding the 5 lakh rupees. Okay. So this is what is the tax payable if you are in the second slab. Similarly, if your income falls above 10 lakhs, you will fall under the third slab, wherein you have to pay 30% tax on the income that exceeds 10 lakhs. Okay. So what about the previous amount then? Since you have crossed these 2 lakhs, up to 5 lakhs, you pay 5%, that is nothing but 12,500. Since you have crossed 10 lakhs limit, that is 5 lakhs of income which is falling under 20 lakhs bracket, that comes to 1 lakh. So the minimum amount you have to pay once you cross 10 lakhs is 1,12,500 is the minimum amount you pay once you cross 10 lakhs, plus 30% of any income above the 10 lakhs is the tax rate that you have to be paid. Okay, I hope you are clear on this. Now, coming to the new tax regime. So this is old tax regime where you compute the taxes and pay as per this regime. Now, if you are falling under the, if you want to apply the new tax regime, what is the tax slab? As I told you, the department has given different slab with 5% increase in of taxation, 5% rate increase for every slab. So you have 5%, 10%, 15%, 20%, 25%, 30%. So every 5% has a slab. So you have an option either to go as per the old slab or as per the new slab. So I'll not go into details of this. I'll be sharing you with the new slab and the old slab in the assignment, and I'll be allowing you to do work which will be beneficial for you. So based on that, you will be able to understand in detail what is the difference. Now I will tell you what is the reason or what is the benefit or why I should take new regime, or what are the difference, why the department has given a lower slab here. If you see here, a person earning 10 lakhs and above is paying only 20% here. Okay. So whereas if you see 5 lakhs to 7.5 lakhs, he is paying 12,500 plus 10% here. Then you have 15%. Whereas in the earlier slab, you pay 20% over and above 5 lakhs. So immediately once you cross 10 lakhs, you pay 30%. But here you start paying 30% only when you cross 15 lakhs. So why is this variation given? Why is this benefit given? I will tell you what are the, this is the advantage that you have lower rate of tax up to 15 lakhs, then only you have 30% lakhs. But what are the things you have to forgo, or which are we have to let go if you want to go with the new tax regime? So these are the basic conditions for opting the new tax regime. What is that? So these are the list of exemptions and deductions which I told will be available to you, but you cannot take these benefits if you want to opt for the new tax regime. So for example, these are the general benefits a person has under salary. Leave travel allowance is the benefit which is given to a salaried person. If you want to go for the new tax regime, this will not be allowed to you. House rent allowance is a general benefit any salaried person takes. So if you want to go with the new tax regime, then you cannot claim this benefit. Conveyance allowance, daily allowance, reallocation allowance, children education allowance, and standard deduction on salary. Even this I told you, a salaried person is eligible for 50,000 standard deduction. You and housing loan interest. So all these benefits, even deduction under chapter 6A, except for ATCCD, no benefits can be taken by a person who opts for new tax regime. So the department says you claim the benefit, keep documentation of keep documentation for all the claims you have made, and pay lower tax and go as per the new old tax regime. Or if you don't want headache of any exemptions, keeping documentation or any benefits you want to take, then forget and go with the new tax regime. Just see what is your total income, pay at the slab available, and be peaceful. That always department is taking these two stand. So what are the companies are doing? So since the responsibility of TDS is on the companies, the most of the companies are telling we don't want the headache of you submitting documents to us and you be taking the headache of your documentation. So they are going and applying tax as per the new tax regime and deducting tax as per the new tax regime. Okay, so these are the things which you should be aware of. So what are the deductions allowed under the tax regime? So these are only things which are allowed under the new tax regime. So transport allowance for specially abled person, that means disabled person. Conveyance allowance for expenditure incurred for traveling to work. So this is the only allowance which you can claim as salary. As I told you, investment notified under pension scheme. This is the only benefit under 80D you can claim. And for employment, this is for employers under 80GA and depreciation. These are the only benefits people can claim under the new tax regime and go with the lower slab of income. Okay. Now, there is one more benefit which is available. As I told you, the exemption limit of tax is 2.5 lakhs, but there is always a discussion and confusion saying that up to 5 lakhs, the department is saying there is no tax limit. So there is a difference here. So what is that? The 2.5 lakhs is a basic exemption limit, but even though your income is about 2.5 lakhs, the department says if your income, taxable income is below 5 lakhs, I will give you an additional benefit of giving waiver of the tax payable, which says waiver of the tax payable. You have to compute the tax, but the department will waive off the tax in the form of rebate. So this is not a reduction in income, it is not a deduction in income, but it is a tax waiver, which is called as rebate. So when you get this tax rebate is what is important. So you need to see the conditions. So what are the conditions when you can get a tax waiver from the department? So here is the criteria you should fulfill in order to get a rebate under section 87A. So first thing is you should be a resident individual in India. So if you are a non-resident, you don't get the benefit. So I did not, I think you will worry on this because most of the people here are residents and you don't have many people who are non-resident. What is the second condition? Your total annual taxable income after applicable deductions such as ATC should not exceed 5 lakh rupees. That means your whatever your income may be after giving benefit of deductions or allowances, it should be below 5 lakh rupees. Okay. Next condition. You can avail a tax rebate capped at 12,500. So what is the cap available? The tax waiver is restricted to 12,500 only. So you have to compute your tax as per the normal provisions. See what is your taxable income. See whether your income is below 5 lakhs. That is the first thing. Second thing is calculate your tax and see whether it is 12,500 or not. You will get a tax waiver only up to 12,500. This is what is very important. So what does that mean? Now, if you see based on the previous slab, whether you see this under the new provision or under the old provision, once you cross 5 lakhs, 12,500 is the minimum tax you have to pay. So the benefit of rebate is available for first time earners or the earners who are just started earning and their income is below 5 lakhs. So if by any chance you have started earning and your taxable income is below 5 lakhs, you are getting a tax liability at the rate of 5%. But in spite of you getting tax liability at 5%, the department gives a tax waiver. So department gives a tax waiver. Up to what amount is he giving you waiver? That is 12,500. Whether under the old scheme or under the new scheme, the department is giving a waiver of 12,500 rupees. That means even if your taxable income is above 2.5 lakhs, you calculate and show to the department, my income is say 4 lakh rupees. On 4 lakhs, I have income of 1.5 lakh taxable under 12.5%. So 1,50,000 into 5% comes to 7,500. You have to show my tax payable is 7,500. But because of the tax waiver available under ATC, I satisfy all the conditions under ATC. 7,500 is the tax payable. I get a waiver of tax payable. So tax payable is 0. Now you will have a doubt. What if my income becomes 5 lakh 1,000 rupees? So once your income increases above 5 lakh rupees, you do not satisfy the conditions which are laid down in 87A. That means you will be charged at the normal rate. This rebate will get out of your tax computation. The tax 87A tax benefit, the tax waiver does not apply to you. So you cannot claim the benefit. Once you cross 5 lakh rupees, minimum amount of 12,500 will get attracted to you and your income gets taxed accordingly. So this is what is important and that you should know. So this is the reason why people say their exemption limit is 5 lakhs. This is not the exemption limit. The reason is, even though your income is above the taxable limit, you will not be liable to pay tax is the law. So this is confused with exemption limit. So you should be very clear. Exemption limit is 2.5 lakhs, but the department has given additional benefit by way of tax waiver up to the income of 5 lakh rupees, which may come up to 12,500. To that extent, the department has given a waiver. Okay, I hope this is clear. So over and above, once you decide you have a tax liability, if there is a waiver, there is no surcharge, no cess. If there is any tax liability, you have different percentage of surcharge and cess which will come into picture, and you will have to calculate accordingly the surcharge and cess, which will be depending on your income. So surcharge is something which will be applicable to people who have higher income. That means surcharge is applicable at the rate of 10% or 15% over and above income of 50 lakhs and 1 crore. But cess is something which is be paid by every individual. Once you have even 1 rupee of tax payable, say I can tell you minimum of 12,500 rupees is tax payable, then you have to calculate 4% surcharge on the cess, on the income tax as cess, and you have to pay along with this amount. So this is very important thing that you should know. Cess is applicable to everybody, but surcharge is not applicable to everybody. So what will happen? How do you compute surcharge and cess when surcharge is applicable? So surcharge is something which is calculated on the tax amount. Then if you have surcharge, then cess will be calculated on income tax plus surcharge. On that 4% will be the cess which will be calculated. Now, the next important thing which we'll have to deal with, and the question I actually basically asked was with regard to TDS and advance tax. Now we have discussed basically as to what is tax computation, how do I compute tax, and what is to be done, what is the tax liability. Now, what is TDS and what is advance tax? Okay, so basically TDS is a mechanism where a person responsible for making a specified payment such as salary, commission, professional fee, interest, rent, etc. is liable to deduct tax at a certain percentage before making the payment. Okay, this is the mechanism where it says departments puts a responsibility, it imbibes or it gives you a responsibility of making the payment with only after making the TDS. So the reason why I will ask you at the later, once we have in the question and answer session, I want to understand what you people have thought, why is this TDS implemented? Okay, now second thing, what is advance tax? See, why is advance tax required? I'll put it in simple terms. When you start working for as a salaried person, do you expect salary to come on a monthly basis, or you will wait for the year to end? So generally you will expect everything to come on a monthly basis, right? Similarly, as the department knows, you will not be able to estimate your tax for the entire year. So you will not know the tax for the entire year. You will come to know the tax only after the end of the year. But the department cannot wait for the end of the year to calculate the tax and then pay the tax. The department also wants revenue on a regular basis. So what does the department say? So department says you will not be able to accurately ascertain the tax, but you will be able to estimate the tax, whether it is salary income or any other income. So you estimate or you compute estimated income of yours, work out the tax liability, and you have to pay advance tax in installments. So advance tax is mean if your tax payable is more than 10,000. So not everybody is liable to pay advance tax. If your estimated income and the tax liability on the estimated income is about 10,000 rupees, then you have to pay tax in advance either in the form of TDS through salary by the employer, or if it is not paid as TDS in any other form, you have to yourself pay the TDS, the advance tax under different slabs on different dates. So what is the purpose? What will happen if I don't pay advance tax or TDS? So at the end of the year, when you file the returns, you will have to work out the tax liability, and you will be able to reduce the advance tax and TDS which is been deducted and pay only the balance. So when you are paying the balance, if at all you have tax payable which is more than the taxes already paid in the form of advance tax or TDS, the balance amount will have to be paid to the department with interest. So this is what you will end up with. If you are not paid the department, the taxes, the basically the department requires 100% of your taxes should be paid before March year end. If by any chance, if you have not paid the entire amount of tax, either in the form of TDS or in the form of advance tax, then from 1st of April, if you pay any tax, then it will be called as self-assessment tax, and any amount you pay subsequent to March will be liable to interest under different sections. There are 3 sections which will levy you penalty for non-payment of advance tax. Basically 2 sections. One is for late filing, 234A, 234B and 234C are 2 sections which will levy interest on your non-payment of advance tax or difference in the amount of advance tax when compared to your income. If you're not paid as per the slab, then also you pay interest. If you're not paid advance tax, then also you pay interest. So this is what you end up if you don't pay advance tax or TDS, and ensure that the entire amount of tax is being paid before the end of the year. Okay, I think so. If TDS is paid and that is sufficient to cover the tax liability, then there is no advance tax. So if the TDS which you have paid does not cover your tax liability, then the difference in amount will have to be paid by you. So advance tax is only over and above the tax TDS paid. If you are a salaried, the employer has the responsibility to deduct TDS, so it is taken care. If by chance you have any other income and the TDS is taken, then does not cover the amount, then only you will be liable to pay the advance tax. I hope things are clear. If you have any questions, please make a note. We will discuss at the end of the session. So next, this is something which is very important. So now I have given you in the basically yesterday's class and today's session as to what and how do we arrive at the income and how do we compute the tax. So once you are aware of all this is the basic format you should have in your mind as to what are the steps to compute. I have given you 10 basic simple steps. I'll be sharing you this tax computation sheet also along in the mail or in the assignment for you to for reference. So what do we do? First thing we have to do is arrive at the gross total income. That is nothing but the total of different heads of income under 5 heads. That is salary income, house property income, capital gains, business and profession, other sources. Claim the benefits under different sections. Arrive at the gross total income. What is the second step? Calculate the deductions applicable under 80C to 80U. So identify the deductions, payments, check whether you get benefit under that. So take the benefits only which are applicable to you, which are applicable. Arrive at the total, that is deductions applicable under chapter 6A, reduce it from the tax income, then arrive at the total income or the taxable income. So once you arrive at the taxable income, you will have to calculate tax. So here one thing you have to notice, for salaried income you have to go as per normal rate. If you have income, certain income which are taxable at special rate, for example capital gains, there are certain capital gains under which you will have to pay tax at a specified rate irrespective of your income. You may be paying 10% or 15% irrespective of your slab. So out of the total income you have to segregate taxable income at specified rate, taxable income at normal rates. So salaried people and other people need not worry. Unless you have capital gains, everything will be chargeable at normal rates. There will be no special rates. Okay. So arrive at that. Then add surcharge. As I told you, surcharge is applicable only if you cross 50 lakhs and above. So the add surcharge, if you are not crossing 50 lakhs, surcharge will be zero. Then next component is health and education cess. As I told you, cess is applicable to everybody, irrespective of whether you are falling under whichever slab, whatever income. Once you have a tax payable, then you have surcharge which has to be payable. Okay. Then as I told you, you have to check whether you are eligible for rebate. So as I told you, if you satisfy the conditions, check whether you are eligible for rebate. If you are eligible for rebate, then the tax payable will get reduced and your net tax liability will become zero. But if you don't satisfy the conditions, the tax rebate will not be applicable to you and you will have a tax liability. Okay, I hope this till here you are clear. Then what will happen? So this is prepaid taxes. So prepaid taxes includes TDS as well as advance tax. So if your tax liability is, say, as I told you, advance tax is payable only about 10,000 rupees. Otherwise, it is not payable. But any amount of tax liability if you have, if the tax prepaid taxes is more than the tax liability, then you are eligible for refund. That means the tax liability should always be more than the prepaid. The tax liability should always be less than the prepaid taxes, whether in the form of advance tax or in the form of TDS. I'll come back. So please wait. So if by chance, what is the prepaid taxes? I want to make it clear again. You know what is the tax liability. Now you have to say what is the prepaid taxes. What is prepaid taxes? Prepaid taxes is nothing but a total of TDS and advance tax. The combination of this is called as prepaid taxes. If my prepaid taxes is more than the tax liability, what will happen? You will get a refund. You are eligible for refund. That means you have paid all the liability or you have paid equal amount of tax which is liable in the form of the prepaid taxes. For presume, for simple basic example, my tax liability is 15,000 rupees and I have paid prepaid taxes either in the form of TDS or in the form of advance tax 15,000. So what will happen? Total liability 15,000, my prepaid tax is 15,000, tax payable is zero, refund is zero. Are you clear? First example. Second example, what if my tax liability is 15,000? Okay, but prepaid taxes, my TDS and advance tax total is coming to 20,000 rupees. So you have excess of prepaid taxes above your liability. So what will happen? Tax payable will be minus 5,000, that is refund. You will have to claim a refund of 5,000 rupees. Okay, understood? So if at any point of time you will have to pay taxes before March, so you don't know how much your tax income may be and what your tax may be, but if you have paid excess tax, you'll be able to claim the refund. Now, what if the other way around? My tax liability is 15,000 rupees, but my tax paid, prepaid taxes in the form of TDS and advance tax is only 10,000 rupees. Then the interest gets added. That is point number 9. So if your tax, prepaid taxes is less than the tax payable, then you will have to pay interest under section 234B and C, as I told you, for non-payment of advance tax before the year end and for delay in payment of advance tax under two provisions, 234B and C, interest will be calculated by the department and you have to now pay including interest. Okay, I hope now you are clear what will happen. So you have to ensure that before the year end, you pay 100% of your tax. That's the reason in the form 16, when the salary has been paid, you ensure that before March, the tax liability is made zero. So whatever is the tax liability, the entire amount is taxed is deducted before March. So when the salaried people, you cannot issue a form 16 saying 1 lakh is the tax payable. I have paid 90,000, deducted 90,000 TDS, 10,000 will be paid by the assessee. No, it is not possible. If it is a responsibility of the employer, he has to deduct. So under salaries, if you have only salary income, you will have tax TDS deducted, which will be equal or more than the tax liability. So you need not worry if you are a salaried person. There is no chance of getting interest under 234A, B and C. But if you have other income, say for example, rental income, you have interest from SB, you have dividend income. So once you add all this, if you have not disclosed this to your employer and if you have not asked them to deduct TDS including this income, when you compute your income, you will get an additional tax liability. In that case, the tax interest will get added. Then you have to pay, when you are filing the returns, you have to pay the tax including interest. I hope everybody is clear now. Hope everybody is clear. So interest computation will be different under different section. It's if I take interest computation, that itself will take more than 1 hour. So we will be sharing you a slide where in tax computation how it is computed. It's a complicated for you to understand. The software or the departmental website, the file which has been provided by the department itself will do it. So the basic purpose of having the seminar is enable you to file yourself from the department website. So salary income, you have a software which is generated by the department itself. You can download that. The department website itself will calculate the interest. So I can tell you in simple thing, it may vary from 1% to 3% is the minimum interest you pay per month from April if you have not paid the interest. This is on a macro level. 1% to 3% is the interest and penalty you have to pay for non-payment of advance tax before March. Okay. So this is on a macro level. Okay, I hope things are clear on this. Now we'll go to the next important thing, which is very important for you, is to know the various forms which are applicable when you are a salaried person. You should have an understanding of these basic forms. So how many of you have heard? So most of you have heard Form 16. So how many of you heard what is 12BA? I think I missed out to go on the polls. Before we take this, I want you to please update the polls. I am just launching the poll. You will have 2 minutes to update the polls. So please go ahead. I think you can see the polls on your portal, on your screen. So please update the polls. You have just 10 questions, and these are 10 simple questions which I want you to answer. Students, I want you to finish off the polls fast. Simple things. I have repeated the yesterday's thing because There are a few new entries. There will be a second poll also for the day. I'll give one more minute before we end the poll. Okay, we'll end this poll. So, second, as we are aware, so PAN, most of the people have it. So, have income during the previous year, most of them are having the returns. So, are you liable to file the returns? People are saying yes, and there are people saying no. Exemption limit has got missed. Okay. Have you filed your returns? Yes, few people are no. How have you filed? So, nobody has filed the returns by themselves. Everybody have been filing either by professional CAs and or by others. So most of them are not able to explain the returns by themselves. And this is the basic thing. Now I have a second poll for the day. Again, 2 minutes to question the second poll for the day. 2 minutes for you to answer the second poll. Okay, I hope you people have. There's one more person yet to finish. Please finish. Just one person pending to finish. Please finish. Yes. So all of you have participated in the poll. Thanks for your participation. So have you completed your assignment for the day? So most of you have not done. Only one person has submitted their assignment yesterday. It's very sad to see people not submitting the assignment. Okay. Are you aware of advanced tax provisions? I wanted to take the poll in the beginning, but I think at least after what I have explained, you have understood what are the advanced tax provisions. I will be giving you the chart which will display how much is the advanced tax percentage you have to pay and what are the due dates, which will help you to understand it better. So are you aware of the purpose of TDS? Most of them are not aware. Aware of tax computation process? Again, many of them are not aware. Are you aware of ITR? Most of them are not aware. Or you're aware of ITR forms applicable for salaried? 50% say yes, 50% no. Are available? Are you aware of documents that are required to be submitted? Few people say yes and no. So how many bank accounts do you disclose? So most of you are saying yeah, only one bank account. Only few are saying all the accounts. Are are you aware why the department is asking for the bank account updation? Many of them say yes. Are you aware of ITR verification? Most of them say no. So this is the poll results. Okay. So before I go to the next thing, as I told you, the next important thing we are going here is to understand what are these forms. I think most of you are aware that Form 16 is the certificate which is given for a proof of TDS deducted on salary. So Form 16 is the TDS certificate applicable for salaried people. If an employer has deducted TDS on salary, he has to provide you with the Form 16. I'll be sharing you a format of Form 16 so that you understand. So I think you are able to, are you able to see here? Okay, so this is the Form 16. What is this? This is basically certificate that the person who is responsible for deducting TDS under first employee under section 192 provides this. This has two parts, part A and part B. So what does part A provide? Part A provides you the details of the deductor and the deductee with the address and what is the total amount of income that is paid to you as salary and what is the TDS amount deducted. This is summary of your income paid and the TDS deducted. Okay. So what is the second portion now? The second portion is the part B, which gives you the basic working on how the tax is being worked out and how the TDS is being computed and the basic benefits which are being provided by the company and what documents have been submitted. So I want you to just go through the Form 16 so that you understand what the Form 16 is. So basically the part B, as I told you, will give you a detailed analysis of your salary. These are the mandatory things which has to be disclosed by the employer. So one is gross salary. Okay, once you'll have to disclose what is your gross salary under section 17(1), and as I told you, there are non-monetary benefits which are given by the employer that has to be disclosed separately under section 12BA. Along with section form 12BA, he has to be disclosed what is the value of perquisites that has been provided by the employer and what is profits in lieu of salary that is not generally available. So total of monetary benefits and non-monetary benefits will be your total salary. Okay. Out of this, if at all you have claimed any benefit under section 10, it may be, as I told you, leave travel concession, gratuity, commuted pension, house rent allowance, cash and leave encashment, or any other benefits. If at all the company has given to the employer, they have to provide section wise details as to what is the benefit that the company has given, and the company has to ensure they have documentary proof for every benefit that has been given and the benefit of deduction exemption that the company has given to the employee. The company cannot simply give benefit without giving documents. If that is the case, every company will tell the employee, you give documents, or without documents, every employee will tell you claim the benefit, I'll not pay tax. So this is not possible. The company is responsible for ensuring every detail here he is correct, and he will be responsible for any mistakes or documentation not available with him. So before providing any data in the Form 16, the employer has to ensure that he has sufficient documents to provide the benefit which he is giving. So once exemptions are given, then you come at the total amount of salary which is available to the employee for taxation. Then you see you get a standard deduction, as I told you, of 50,000 rupees. Is a standard deduction irrespective of your income. Even if your income is 3 lakhs, you get a standard deduction of 50,000 rupees. Even if your income is 10 lakhs or 50 lakhs, you get a standard deduction of 50,000 only. The next benefit you get is entertainment allowance is not available now. Tax on employment. The tax on unemployment is nothing but professional tax in Karnataka. Similarly, you have different state taxes applicable on salaried people. So presently for Karnataka, it is 200 for salary above 15,000 rupees. So generally 200 into 12, 2,400 rupees will the professional tax deduction that generally everybody will be getting. Otherwise, if it is for other states, they will be having different tax slab. So this will be your tax computation for salary. Now, any other income reported by the employer, any other income reported by the employer. So the employee has the option, as I told you, to disclose any other income. It may be income from house property, or interest, as I told you, on house property, or income from other sources. Also, you can tell that employer to take care of that, so that TDS is deducted and you don't end up paying interest because of non-payment of advance tax. So you will have to, you have an option to disclose. So if at all the employee provides the details, you have to ensure sufficient documentation, and then only the employer can report any other income reported by the employee. He has to clearly provide with the documents that this is the amount of income which has been considered, which has been provided by the employee. Then you compute what is the tax available. So what you come to, then you come to point number 10. Now point number 9, which will show you the gross total income. Then under chapter 6A, if at all the employee says I have invested in LIC, mutual funds, PF, PPF, and all that, this also has to be documented by the employer before he gives benefit of this in the form 16. Okay, so he has to give a clear breakup of each and every individual deduction which he is allowing you. So once you take care of all the deductions, even 80G, 80TTA, all that, and section wise details, if at all you are claiming any other benefit, which section, how much benefit to you, documents you have provided, what is eligibility, how much the benefit the employer is considering, everything has to be provided here. Then comes taxable income. That is means the employer is accepting that I have given benefit as per applicable laws, and this is the taxable income on which this is the tax amount which is coming, and he has to work out whether 87A applicable or not, and then surcharge whatever is there, education says, then you arrive at net tax payable. So whatever is the net tax payable here should have been paid. That is the minimum amount you have to pay in part A. The part A should show that you have paid tax on behalf of the employee. It is should be equal or more than the tax payable which is being provided by you in the form part B. So you cannot show any form 16 or issue a form 16 where the tax payable is more than the tax deducted by you. Are you clear? So this is a part of form 16. This is what is form 16, and this is how you understand various components of form 16. Now, before I go to the next form, sir, I think there is no problem with the connection here as of now. In any case, yeah, okay. Okay, so what is the next important form? As I was telling you, what is the next important form which you should know is form number 12BA. So what is form 12BA? Okay, as I was telling you, form 12BA is the declaration which is given by the employer in respect of non-monetary benefits. So if at all the company has provided any non-monetary benefits along with the Form 16, you will also have to provide the Form 12BA. So what does 12BA contain? It again contains the basic details of the employer and the employee. And as I told you, the various non-monetary benefits are classified here. So these are considered as various non-monetary benefits which an employer can give. And every specific perquisite has a valuation methodology. You will have to value the perquisite as I told you. Under each clause, there is a different valuation method. It has to be worked out by the employer and has to be provided for each item. Then the total of this will come under Form 16 as value of perquisite and be considered as part of your tax. So this form also I'll be sharing with you for you to understand. So this is Form 12BA, which is a part of Form 16 if at all you have given non-monetary benefit to the employee. So what is the next important form you should know? The next important form which everybody should know is Form 26AS. How many of you have seen Form 26AS? Can you answer in? Have you seen 26AS? So what is Form 26AS? So Form 26AS is basically a passbook of your prepaid taxes. So as I told you, you will be eligible to reduce that prepaid taxes from your tax liability, correct? So how will you know? How will the department know? You will give it, but department will verify whether the 26, whether the taxes paid by you, whether it is form of TDS or advance tax, has come in your passbook. Is 26AS is the passbook of your taxes paid for a relevant year, which is already available with the income tax department. This is called as Form 26AS. This will give you a breakup of any TDS that is being made by any person under any section. So if at all if anybody says you have deducted TDS, you have to ensure that the TDS is appearing in Form 26AS. If at all this TDS is not appearing in 26AS, then the department will not give you benefit of that tax paid. Even though the TDS is being deducted, if the tax amount uh, if the tax amount of which is being paid is not appearing in your passbook, the department will not allow the benefit of tax paid. So 26AS is available in your login that I will show you sometime later. Probably I will try to show you now itself a form of 26AS so that you get a clear idea of what are okay. Okay. So it is time for closing today, but I will just continue. I hope you will not have any problem in the continuing. So this is 26AS. So this is form number 26AS, which is called annual tax statement. Okay. So this will contain your PAN number, your name, your address, which is as per the applicable records. This is the data available with the department. So before you file any returns, even whether your return or anybody's return, this is the form which you need to ensure to check whether your taxes paid are getting reflected. If the tax paid either by the form of TDS or by the form of prepaid taxes, advance tax or self-assessment tax, if it is not appearing in 26AS, the department will not consider the tax paid and issue a demand notice saying you are shown that tax is being paid, but we have no document or proof of your tax paid in your record, so you pay the tax. Sorry. So this is what is Form 26 says. What does it show? Details of tax deducted at source is part A. So if anybody has deducted tax at source under whichever section, they will provide the name of the deductor, TAN number, amount paid by them, and the tax deducted. Sorry. So this details has to be provided. So if anybody has deducted, it will reflect here as to this person has deducted this amount and paid you so much amount. Okay. Second part is details of deduction under source under 15G and 15H in respect of banks. If you have given 15H, 15G and 15H, then also it will get reflected here. Part A2. This is TDS in respect of sale of property. So if at all any TDS has been done on respect of sale of property, it will appear under this clause. There is a provision of tax collection at source also, just like TDS. If that is been done, it will come here. Or details of other taxes paid other than TCS or TCS. As I told you, you will have to pay advance tax, or at the end of the time, if you have not paid the advance tax at the time of filing, you will have to pay self-assessment tax. That will get appeared under Part C. So the total of tax which is appearing here should match with your prepaid taxes. If at all by any chance this prepaid taxes does not match with your computation, the department will surely issue a notice to the assessee. Hope I am clear. So this is very important form again, which is you should know before you file the returns. So next, which is the next important form I told you, 16A. So we all now discussed what is Form 16. So there is one more thing which is important, which I told you is there is something called Form 16A also. So what is Form 16A? So Form 16A is nothing but a form issued for TDS being deducted other than salary. So as I told you, when a salary is deducted, Form 16 is issued. If TDS is being deducted under any other source, whether it is on interest or it is on professional charges or rent, the certificate form is called Form 16A. So you should have Form 16A for any TDS which is being deducted other than salary. Are you clear? So these are the important forms you should know before you file your returns related to salary and other income. Okay. So if you have TDS has been deducted as a banker on FD or interest, then you should get Form 16A from the banker. Once you get Form 16A from the banker, you will can ensure that it is been appearing in the form in your 26 years. Okay. Because in today's environment, as I told you yesterday, any Form 16 or 16A cannot be self-generated. It cannot be just on a letterhead. It has to be authenticated in traces. It has to be authenticated by traces. Then only it can be assured. So your Form 16 or 16A should have a hologram of traces. Then only it is authentic. Otherwise, it is not authentic. Okay. So I think these are the basic forms which you should aware of before you file the returns. And next important thing is ITR form. What do you think you mean by ITR? Can you reply in chat? Anybody wishing to reply in chat? What do you mean by ITR? Whatever you feel, you can just reply. What do you mean by ITR? Correct. So ITR represents income tax return. So basically, it is the income tax form which the department has released, which has to be filed by the people who are filing the returns. So this I am giving you a overview of different forms which are available and who has to use this form. I have made a compact summary of this. I'll be sharing you with this form also as to who can use the ITR and why, which form has to be used. So ITR 1 is to be used only for residents having income below 50,000 rupees and who is having salary income, only one house property income It may be either self-occupied or let out, only one house property and other sources. If you have only these three items, then only you are eligible to file ITR 1. Okay, very clear. So for salary, generally ITR 1 is applicable because most of them have only salary, or maximum along with salary they have self-occupied property and income from other sources. So you can basically go with ITR 1. But in case you have salary but you have income from more than one house property, then you cannot file ITR 1. There are basically other conditions also. I'm just giving a fair overview. Either salaried persons with salary income, other income will either fall in one or two. Others are there, but I'm not concentrating on that because this seminar is only basically for salaried people. Okay, so when you will go for ITR 2, if you have more than one house property, if it is two self-occupied properties, I told you one will become deemed income. If you have one salaried property, one let out property, then only you will have ITR 2. If you have two let out properties, then also it will be ITR 2. Okay, so if you have more than one house property, then if you have income from investments, capital gains, foreign source of income, and agricultural income exceeding 5,000 rupees. If you have agricultural income also, you cannot file ITR 1. You have to come for ITR 2. And if your income exceeds 50 lakh rupees, if you are only salaried, no other income, but your salary exceeds 50 lakhs, then also you cannot file ITR 1. You have to come to ITR 2. So these are the basic categories where salaried person will fall. Okay. ITR 3 is basically if you along with salary you have any business income, then you will not fall under ITR 1 or 2. Then you will have to either go for ITR 3 or ITR 4. ITR 3 and 4 will be if you have business income along with salary income. So 5 is for partnership firms and LLPs kind of a thing. ITR 6 is for companies. So this is a basic overview of the ITR forms which has to be used by the individuals. Okay. Hope you are clear and this is helpful for you. So this is what we had for today's session. I think I have taken more time than what we had for today's session. So I thank you for your time and patience in this weekend and your interest to learn even on a weekend and understand this. I hope this has been helpful for you and I thank you for your participation. So now is the time